Howdy Goons, we have some interesting news for the RG Rotate. As I guessed, the RG Rotate is going to be less than $100 for the plastic version, which is just $88, and a little bit over $100 for the metal shelled version, which is $108, but that's the pre-order price. It might go up after pre-orders. We also have an unboxing video from Ambernick. In it, we get confirmation on a lot of things like specs and an included lanyard. I love lanyards, no joke. Optional shoulder button replacements and an included screen protector. We have an 80mm by 80mm by 21mm shell. In Freedom units, that's 3.15 inches by 3.15 inches by 0.8 inches thick. These are some pretty pocketable stats. This makes it thinner and less tall than the 35XX SP. This seems very different than the RG Slide situation. For the metal version, we have 204 grams of weight and the plastic is 167 grams. That's less than a half of a pound and a third of a pound respectively. This makes it weigh less than the Ambernick SPs for the plastic shells and only very slightly more for the metal shell. So slight that you wouldn't notice the difference. The screen size is 3.5 inches with 720p with touch, not the 4-inch RG Cube XX screen that I guessed that they would use, but still pretty sizable. Unfortunately, this means 4:3, 3:2, 16:9, 14:9, and more horizontal aspect ratios are going to be a little bit smaller than they would be on something like the Ambernick 3.5-inch 4:3 handhelds like the SP handheld, the first one at least. It looks like the pocket friendliness is going to be close to or slightly better than the SP Ambernicks. The rest of the physical features are USB-C charging and data transfer, 5-volt charging, womp, effing womp, function button, lanyard hole, and volume button. Pretty much everything we saw in the preview. Shoulder buttons are micro switches and face buttons are dome switches, so they'll be pretty clicky. Hidden microphone between the select and start. They'll put a microphone no one will see or use, but not a headphone jack. 2000 milliamp hour battery. They said it'll last 5 hours. I'm guessing that'll be accurate on Pixel systems, which is what you're getting this for because there aren't any sticks. Speakers on the back because the only thing worse than no headphone jack is a backfiring speaker. Then they go on for a while about the Hinge, talking about how cool and smart it is, and yeah, it's pretty cool. The narrator says they tested it a billion times, so it'll probably shatter into pieces like the Miu Flip. Kidding. We'll just have to wait and see for that. Opening it up, we can replace the buttons ourselves. This interior is way cleaner than I expected. The RG Rotate looks like it was actually made to be opened. Very nice. The raised shoulders slot right in, and they show us how they're barely raised. Yippee. We have a confirmation on the SoC, and it's the Tiger T618. You can watch videos on the RG Vita to get an idea of its power. It'll peak at Dreamcast, N64, and PSP. It's a Tier 2 handheld, or a mid-range handheld. Think Ioneo Pocket Air Mini. We have 3GB of RAM and 32GB internal memory with an expandable micro SD. I think since this is mostly best for Pixel systems, you're going to be fine with a 64GB micro SD card. You can fit every single Pixel systems library and still have space for 50GB worth of PS1 games. Runs on Android 12. They talk about optimizations they made to make the software a more seamless experience with the Hinge. Things you'd expect, like it rotating when you flip it, or it turning on when you flip it. And then they go on to talk about their games launcher that you'll never use because their software is usually terrible. You'll probably just install Daijisho or Emulation Station. Then they go for the big claim. They say it'll play PS2, Wii, GameCube, and 3DS. Even if it can play those, I don't think I'd want to play it on this. As a reminder, this is the same chipset as the Pocket Flip and the RG Vita, so we have existing hardware to compare this to. Yes, it'll likely play PS2 and GameCube, but only to a similar degree as the Pocket Air Mini or less, which means it will play those, but you won't be playing Ratchet & Clank or God of War. And any PS2 that works on it is only going to be in 1x resolution. I'm personally fine with that. That's what I play on the Pocket Air Mini, but there's an elephant in the room, or, well, a lack of something in the room. There isn't any analog sticks and the screen is pretty small. Even if it played PS2 flawlessly, this is more power than it can properly utilize due to the lack of sticks and its small screen. 3.5 inches is massive for a 1:1 screen, and that's 2.5 inches wide, which is 3.1 inches for 4:3 content, which is pretty small. As for analog sticks, sure, you can use a hotkey to switch the D-pad into analog mode, but that's going to be clunky. There isn't an indicator light like the Shoe 20 to show which mode it's in, so good luck fumbling with that. Even if it were flawless, you're still converting an 8-way movement D-pad into systems that had sticks for 32 angles of movement. Just stick with the stickless classics and save some headache. For audio, they have Bluetooth and a built-in USB-C DAC. I had a Nano and I tried it as a music player and it was alright. I personally prefer my music in big mode, but I don't think of myself as having having a trained ear or being an audiophile, so I couldn't tell you if it was a good DAC or not. Hopefully this one's good, at least good enough to make up for not having a headphone jack. The rest goes into the basic features that you'd expect, like screencasting, 5G Wi-Fi, and Moonlight streaming. Since it has screencasting, it might be okay for consoleizing. You could play your Pixel games on the go, and then when you get home, screencast some Dreamcast. It's not terrible, and I rather play console games at home anyway because I can't use save states since I play on hardcore on retro achievements. I could justify using it this way. Besides, a little extra power for shaders is fine. It does feel like this is the RG Cube situation again though, but I don't think we'll be seeing an H700 version of this one. I don't know how compatible Linux is with the Swingy Doos. Honestly, even after hearing all this, I'm still very interested in this handheld. I realize I'm probably overpaying because of the Hinge thing and the chip being a little more power than I need, but I think as long as the Hinge doesn't explode, this could still be a really cool device. We all remember how oversized the Slide was. This is much smaller, while still having a larger screen than the handhelds you'll use it for. It's a bit more powerful than what you'd use it for, but that's fine. I think this could be a good handheld for showing off or playing some GB, GBC, and GBA. I genuinely can't wait to see the reactions I'll get when I whip it out at the local card shop for Magic Night. Sure, I got knocked out first, but I get to play GBA on the most 2000s handheld ever, so who's the real winner? Them still, probably. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks to the members on YouTube like Dragon Fanatic, AstroPixie YT, Willie P, and Linky. I'll see y'all later. I have to start my Swiggy Doo fund. Consider subscribing to see my review for the RG Rotate when it comes out. Bye!